Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys being here on this Friday. As you can see, I have a new addition to my face. Thankfully, visors in hockey can protect your entire nose, but did cut me across the upper nose. So in some cases, some of you might think my face is fixed, but I can tell you if I didn't have the visor, might have been an even better result for those of you who do think that my face needs a little bit of fixing. So if you're watching on YouTube, I encourage your kids or anyone you know to wear a cage when you play hockey. Took a nasty, got tripped into the boards in my last beer league game, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about SMU Pro Day. SMU Football is 3 weeks away from its spring game, and we're going to dive right in to the latest week that has now passed with Pac-12 realignment and expansion not necessarily happening as of now. So let's dive in. SMU continues to be one of the top schools alongside San Diego State, potentially joining the Pac-12, but we are awaiting a media rights deal. And if you followed it week by week, day by day, hour by hour, this is no surprise that this is just dragging on for another week. We've seen various checkpoints kind of hit from different media kind of pundits saying, well, mid-March or the Pac-12 tournament in Las Vegas when the board of directors meet. Those different meetings don't necessarily impact any ability to get a deal done, whether they happen at those meetings, before those meetings, or after those meetings. And so now the latest meeting with George Kliavkoff and the Pac-12 board of directors did come and go. It was this week. They pushed it back a day. I believe it was Wednesday. And it was held. They got a positive update from multiple media sources tweeting that out. And things just continue to be in flux in a way with this Pac-12 media rights deal that's trying to be negotiated by George Kliavkoff. There's a lot of moving parts. There's Amazon, there's Apple, there's ESPN. Could an Amazon or an Apple lease games out to ESPN, Fox, or other media partners? Those are things being brought up now as people try to dive into what is taking so long in terms of getting this deal done. And I do think, and I've said this for a long time, I don't think there's anything saying that there's going to be a change in the direction of the Pac-12 heading toward the new media rights deal and the league staying together. The only thing that continues to kind of come out that's negative is just continued, awareness made about the fact that the Big 12 continues to try and work different angles on the four corner schools. We've now had multiple presidents come out and say, no, we're committed to a long-term goal of staying in the Pac-12. Obviously, if the media rights deal comes back and it's a mess, that will change things. But those markers have not changed. They continue to at least share with people like John Canizano, who covers it well, John Wilner, others, that things are moving in a positive direction. These things just take a long time. Amazon and Apple are two massive companies that don't have college football or college athletic deals plugged into place to just say, okay, go, sign it, let's plug this in, and let's move on and start planning this new era of Pac-12 media. And so I am not necessarily surprised that this continues to drag on. But I will say, just hang in there. I mean, I don't know if things will change. I will keep you guys as up to date as I can on if I hear of things changing as far as a mood when it comes to SMU's stance on where they stand, or the Pac-12 stance, if I hear of it, on SMU and San Diego State. But those are the two favorites. Those are the two long-term favorites now to join the Pac-12. It won't be surprising if they do. What will be a surprise, it seems like, is when this media rights deal will be announced. The next board of directors meeting is set for April 10th, from what we've heard, but that won't stop this deal from happening. That won't stop this deal from taking even longer. So I don't have a timeline. I just continue to hear that things are in a good spot for SMU. They are in a positive spot for the Pac-12 media rights deal to come together. We've seen even the hardest of hardcore kind of anti-Pac-12 legitimacy uh, articles coming out. We've seen those die down. That doesn't necessarily mean a good thing for a Pac-12, but it also doesn't mean a bad thing either. But that campaign against the Pac-12 has really just slowed publicly in a sense. And John Canizano, I believe it was, he had on former Fox senior vice president who worked through media rights deal, Patrick Crakes. And, the last thing he said was, I think SMU's value would help the Pac-12. And he added it up to about $99 million over a 6-year deal, I believe. If I read that wrong in the article, sorry, but that is what I at least picked up from it, which is really, that's exciting if you're an SMU fan. You see the interest in the Pac-12 from their side of things. You see the Pac-12 reciprocating that with George Kliavkoff's visit. But the one question has kind of always been, where does SMU's media rights value come in? And it obviously, one of the answers to that is Dallas. But the other aspect of that is, do people really want to watch SMU? And that is something that, as the league brings them in, if they do in fact do that, their brand value, their potential student athlete pool, all of these things that we've projected for years with SMU joining a Pac-12 or a Big 12 or an ACC, as those things happen, as those things unfold, the school, the university, how they run things is only going to improve, and therefore their football program should rise to the occasion. That's the thought. And if that's the case, then you see improved brand value from SMU in the Pac-12 and what they would bring to the table. So there really isn't too much new to report outside of that big positive nugget. You see a former senior vice president from Fox who has worked with the Pac-12, who could end up working with one of the Pac-12 media partners to bring games to their networks, say that SMU adds value. And we've kind of maintained that the media market of Dallas is important. It's not as important as if this was all a linear model, which it's not going to be. It sounds like it's going to be streaming and linear as far as television rights goes. But they still bring Dallas. They have a huge market of Pac-12 alumni. It's a major metroplex. You see a lot of these graduates moving to Dallas, and people from the West are moving to Dallas at a high rate. So all of this is a positive. The wait continues. I don't really know what to say to you guys that are out there saying, we'll throw in the towel. This continues, time kills all deals. I don't think this is comparing the Big 12 locking in a deal that was fairly straightforward and renegotiable, but pretty plug and play, or the Big 10 and their massive network deal, or the SEC. This was one that the Pac-12 was going to have to get creative with because of what Larry Scott left George Kliavkoff. And he's trying to do that. And he's trying to give them a deal that he could certainly bring to them and say, this is what we should do. Pac-12 presidents, we agree. Let's lock it in and let's expand by 2, adding SMU and San Diego State. So no time frame. I'm sorry for those who are looking for it, but it's a hard thing to come by. And we'll continue to stay vigilant, of course, on the Pac-12 media rights deal status and kind of what's next in that regard. But just stay ready, because at any moment this thing could really happen, because people do maintain that it's in the final stages of happening. Now, we move into SMU football, SMU Pro Day, and I'm going to lead off with SMU football because I do want to share some of my thoughts as far as who has kind of stood out. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, we've started to roll some B-roll, so you don't have to look at my face all the time. But it's not necessarily all about guys who I'm talking about. But it's just, good stuff for you to watch in case you missed it on our YouTube channel with all the practice highlights. But we're 3 weeks away from SMU spring game as we're recording this. That's about halfway through the practices in a sense. SMU has had some players who have really improved their stock in a big way. I posted an article at ontheponyexpress.com. You can check that out. It's free. So for those of you who watch on our YouTube channel but don't necessarily subscribe to the site, maybe that's a preview. Maybe that's something that you want to go ahead and check out and a reason for you to subscribe. I'm going to hit on the standouts and guys that I want to see a little bit more of down the stretch. Now that we're a week out from spring break, they're going to have a Friday night practice. It's going to be well attended by recruits, and they're going to have a chance to really kind of put together a run of 3 good weeks of practice. What does that look like for some of these players? As far as the standouts from spring overall, I'll lead off there. I really like what Jordan Curley has put together. He's 10 to 15 pounds heavier, which is certainly something he needed to do. He's playing with a lot of confidence. Rob Likens the other day really lit up. We shared that with you guys on the podcast earlier this week. And that's huge for SMU's offense. You know, you get a healthy Jordan Curley performing at his best. That's what you want to see. Preston Stone connected with him on a long bomb to cap Thursday's practice. And Preston Stone really had a nice Thursday. Tuesday, it was really ugly out. But Thursday, they were inside. And he played probably with the most confidence in practice that I've seen. He stepped up and uncorked a few deep balls that really were on the money and were able to be caught and connected with by SMU receivers. And I think you love to see that. You love to see that progression from him. And so overall, I think Preston has had a good spring. I don't think there's anything that necessarily really scares me. I want to continue to see him get better at throwing the deep ball, which he did on Thursday. That's the type of commitment and conviction I want to see him throwing the deep ball with. And he took off and added some runs for a big game too. So he's doing a lot of the things that they want him to. Sometimes it's tough in practice with a player like Preston to truly see what level he's playing at, because there's so many different avenues of his game that he likes to bring to the table. I added that Jalen Knighton is a spring stock riser, so I'll highlight him as well. Just his run so physical for how big he is. You know, he's kind of a relatively thin but strongly built running back, and he does not shy away from contact. And so I would say that you look at the progression for him, and things are on the up as well there. I really like what Hiron White has put together at right tackle. I think he's had a really terrific spring so far. Just coming in and learning and being that physical presence that they need to wash down the rest of the defensive line, because he's that big. He's been terrific in pass protection on that right side. I want to continue to see Marcus Bryant develop. I'll kind of take an aside there and talk about a player that I want to see a little bit more out of. He's very athletic. There's no question about that. And he continues to be a guy that improves every day. I do think at times there's been too many pressures given up because he's not been able to kick, slide, and get out there just quick enough. And I think it's more of a recognition thing. And look, I don't have the film. I don't have the all 11 or the all 22, I should say. But just in terms of watching the two tackles and kind of comparing them, I like what Hiron White's put together a little bit more overall this spring. In terms of the wide receiver group, I've seen Keyshawn Smith settle in a little bit better. I've seen Moochie Dixon continue to make plays. And those are all really, really good things to see, because this is a group that has to step up in a big way with Rashee Rice departing. And then flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, I think you see Jordan Miller emerging as a force in the middle. He has just been terrific. Really start to finish. He has moved the offensive line backwards multiple times. That is what you want to see. He is so strong, and he's a great guy too. We got a chance to talk with him. Check out the interview on our YouTube channel. If you don't subscribe already, please do. We're about 130-ish away from 1,000 subscribers. He's a bright kid, really motivated. Coming in with a chip on his shoulder. He wants to use this as an NFL type job interview. So he has set the tone for this SMU defense. I really think that. So love what Jordan Miller's put together. He has completely moved the line of scrimmage on multiple occasions. And I think that's huge for him to bring that to the table. I want to see more out of David Abiara. He flashes so much athleticism, and we saw him have a very, very limited role last year, but he actually kind of came on in the USF game and showed when he gets an opportunity, he's got that athleticism to kind of make some plays. When it comes to some of the guys that, you expect to have these big jumps, he hasn't taken it necessarily this spring, in my opinion. I just don't think he's there yet. But I was watching him closely on Thursday, and you'll kind of see some of their clips in the video that we're playing on our YouTube channel right now. But you can see some of the athleticism he's got. He's got that in droves. It's putting it together consistently that SMU needs to see more of. They need to see him make more plays, and that'll ultimately get him on the field more. But he hasn't necessarily done that enough to warrant that. So I really feel like he can put it together. And if he does, that is a huge, huge sign for this SMU defense that they could kind of rely on him, because they don't have Jaden Jones. They don't have Stephon Wright this spring. They need guys to really step up in that regard, because they're relatively thin on the defensive line. I mean, we see from time to time them bringing in different reserve players, kind of guys that really aren't in the too deep, to kind of give them a blow. It'd be nice, obviously, if you have if you have some added depth that comes in this summer, for example, as there you go. There's Elijah Roberts there on the screen. This is Braden Flowers coming up, but you have some depth at that defensive line position. You want to see Abiara really take that to the next level and be that guy that they can kind of rely on. So he's got the athleticism. He just has to put it together, because if he does, as you'll see right here, he is just terrific. So, or no, I guess he's not. Calvin Thibodeau was done with him. But there are highlights of David Abiara on our YouTube channel for the full practice highlights. So check those out. Braden Flowers has been a nice addition out of the 2023 class. So David Abiara, want to see more out of him. That would kind of change the defensive line, because that give you, when you have Jaden Jones, when you have Stephon Wright, when you have David Abiara take the next step forward, Jaden Jones and Stephon Wright get back. Those are three guys. It's like adding three transfers that you don't have out there this spring, in a sense. So David Abiara has to step up. They obviously have Kevin Allen and Day-Day Wimberly coming in this summer as summer enrollees with the 2023 class. So more help on the way on the defensive line. At linebacker, I think that's been the group that's been the best surprise of spring. And we had high expectations for Ahmad Walker. He looks very comfortable. He's quick. He's fast. He knows where to go. He does all of those things. He's physical. But Jaquandis Burns is a guy I noted as a stock riser, but he's also just one of the best players in spring overall. He's flashed. He's thinner in a good way. He looks super long. Just looks like an NFL type linebacker when you see him flash on certain plays. We knew he had the speed coming out of IMG Academy. He's originally from Terrell. Goes up north to start his college career, doesn't work out, transfers to SMU, and he kind of showed some flashes, but then he got a little heavy at the end of the season, just kind of, your body, you're not in that tip-top shape that you usually are when you enter fall camp by the end of the season. So that kind of affected his ability to take that next step that he was kind of trending to do at the end of the 2022 season. I tell you, he's been terrific and has really made me feel better about the entire linebacking group, because you have Alex Kilgore, who has showed awesome flashes. You've seen Chris Adamora, who moved down from safety, show some flashes. You have Cam Farrar battling in there, and you add Brandon Mayazono this summer, but they needed another veteran to step up. So it wouldn't shock me if SMU added another transfer linebacker by any means, but Jaquandis Burns has been one of the top performers in spring, and really, you love to see that. Another top performer for me, Jonathan McGill, Brandon Crosley. I think he has shown just how much he's developed over his time here. He's so much more comfortable playing that nickel role and being a pest off the edge. All these safeties they've got playing back there are really interchangeable. And I like what I've seen from all of them. Ahmad Moses has probably been the best safety in a sense that what Jonathan McGill can do. He's a captain at Stanford. You've seen Brandon Crosley play a ton. Ahmad Moses was coming on strong at the end of last year. I love what Ahmad Moses has brought to this defense this spring. He had an interception either right before spring break or earlier this week, but he's just around the ball. He's not afraid to tackle. He's not afraid to make hits. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there. And same goes for CJ Sanders too. He's really kind of been a guy that's had some chippiness to him in a good way in practice, very under control in that sense, but adds a physical element to this defense. So overall, I think when you look at who needs to bring more to the table, it's kind of hard to narrow some down just because you have different situations that they're presenting in practice. But I would say, I mean, you want to see somebody like Jahari Rogers bounce back this summer. He's been out this spring. He hasn't participated. And that's really hard to kind of go through for him, who's played a ton of football. But they brought in Charles Woods. They brought in Chris Megison. They brought in so many guys to add to that secondary, and to have AJ Davis making a run like he is, that's hard for him. So hopefully he bounces back and then can kind of get back into the rotation of things. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else out there that has really kind of failed to meet expectations. I think looking at Kevin Henry Jennings, we see such a pop in his ball, and he's very much stronger than he was last year, and he's thicker and he's got a better understanding, but he needs to continue to speed up processing and make some better decisions at times. He had a bad interception thrown to Kavaris Hall to end practice on Tuesday, throwing across his body. So the talent with Kevin is just off the charts, but continuing to cut down on some mental errors and mistakes and things like that will be key for him. So really, I'm still very high on Kevin Henry Jennings' future at SMU, just because the talent level is only kind of starting to build with him. So really excited about Kevin. I'm just kind of at a blank for who else to kind of mention as far as, not really stepping up. I've been relatively impressed with what a lot of the guys have done, even like relative to their expectations, right? Like Ben Sparks has been a plug in at right guard, and he's been strong and all those things, but you can't really see him flash. And the same goes for Branson Hickman. And both of those guys are going to have to battle because Justin Osborne's going to come back off of injury. Logan Parr is going to enroll this summer. Kai Clark's going to enroll this summer. But it's all competition. It's all a good thing. I do think, the tight end position, Cam Allen would be one that if he could kind of emerge and really start to make some waves, that would be nice for SMU. But Nolan Matthews is really stepped up, and RJ Maryland is a budding superstar. So that if you have a healthy Nolan Matthews, you're in a little bit of a better situation. So really just kind of tough to narrow some down. I think there are some guys that if they would have stayed in the spring and kind of, assessed if they needed to transfer or not, we would be talking about them. But I do feel like a lot of the guys that would have been in that boat are out the door and gone. And no disrespect to them, they just, didn't have it to really compete at a high level with SMU. So we'll keep an eye on it. I will kind of dive into that more on the site for subscribers as far as maybe who else needs to step up in a big way over the course of these next 3 weeks. So with that, do want to make a quick recruiting note here. SMU will have 2025 quarterback Ty Hawkins on campus Friday. He tweeted it out. He's one of the best quarterbacks in Texas in that class. SMU's really high on him. He's got a few offers already to his name early on in his recruitment. He's out of the San Antonio area. He's got Texas State. He's got UTSA, SMU, Incarnate Word, and Texas Tech. So really like Ty Hawkins. It wouldn't shock me if SMU really, really, really turned the heat up if they can get him as their 2025 quarterback, and that would just continue a good little run of quarterbacks. So he'll be on campus Friday for practice. We'll also have the full visitor list when we're able to kind of hunt it all down for you guys on the site. Chris Wakoma, 4-star safety out of Arlington Bowie is one. Adrian Wilson, another impressive wide receiver in the 2025 class who has an SMU offer, will be on campus. He's out of Pflugerville Weiss. So a big recruiting weekend shaping up for SMU on Friday, especially with practice at night. So follow all that at ontheponyexpress.com. Subscribe, $10 a month, just a few bucks, a couple beers, a couple coffees. I'm about to go golf and maybe have a couple brews and kind of hang out. But before I do that, want to run down SMU Pro Day with you guys. Again, the standouts. I think Rashee Rice did exactly what you wanted him to do. He caught the ball well for the most part. He had one drop. He flipped his hands the wrong way, but he did a really good job in Pro Day. I talked to his agent, Chris Ellison, afterwards, and they were really pleased and got some good feedback. So I think Rashee's probably going to be a second round guy, maybe third, or I'd say there's a decent chance he's the third too. But I think he sneaks into the second round somehow. That 4.51 at the combine was really important. We've seen a lot of speedsters come through the NFL, and they just don't really pan out as much when they're that kind of outside threat. You see some freaks here and there, a DK Metcalf or, just other guys kind of here and there, but you haven't really seen that at a really high level. That 4.5, big, thick 6'2" range guy is kind of what NFL teams are really coveting. Brandon Ayuk was somebody that Rob Likens compared to Rashee Rice to, and Rashee's even bigger than him. So, and he's having a nice little start to his career. So Rashee Rice did what he needed to do. I was very impressed with Junior Aho. He told me and you could watch the interview on our YouTube channel, that he's just been kind of working out like for football. He hasn't necessarily been doing a lot of training. So for him to run an unbelievable 4.58 at 6'2.5-ish, 260 is pretty wild. So he's all about playing special teams and just trying to learn and get better on the football field. That's what he's all about. I was really happy for Isaac Slade Matatia, who broad jumped 10.4, ran a 4.76. Not too bad there, but his L drill was pretty solid. Pro agility wasn't bad. And then he had I was looking at Jalen Thomas. Isaac Slade had it's a big difference. Isaac Slade had a 37-inch vertical to top that all off. So really impressive athlete that probably could land some special teams duties in the NFL in all likelihood. And Jimmy Phillips, 6'1-ish, 230. He came in and ran a 4.67. So really nice time for Jimmy as well. He didn't do the L drill. He had a 4.46 pro agility, which isn't bad. Wishes a vertical probably would have been better, but Jimmy's a guy that I think could, again, kind of find I think he would be a multi-year CFL guy, like really consistently. And then Jalen Thomas, he had an awesome pro day. That was the guy that a lot of people were buzzing about, 77.5-inch wing. His arm's a little shorter, no question about that, but a 31-inch vert, a 4.93 40 is pretty good for a big guy. And his pro agility, 4.89, really impressive combine number there on the pro agility. So I think those are the guys that helped themselves the most, but there were, of course, others as well. So it was nice to see Ben Redding, especially out there just so shortly after his ankle injury that ended his SMU career. So shout out Ben for being able to compete in it. So with that, guys, going to shut down this edition of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a great weekend. And we'll be back next week to, once again, talk about the Pac-12, talk about SMU football, and maybe some SMU basketball news. We will have all the official visitors on our site, so be on the lookout and check out a 7-day free trial for all the players Rob Lanier is bringing in this weekend. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast.